Welcome to our family forum this evening. So excited to have everybody here and our wonderful members. Thank you so much for attending for both our or all our masterclass plus students. And we are glad to have our members here as well. Just a couple of announcements before we begin. Please check out our member events page. We have lots of really interesting content coming up here in our family forum format here. We have a college research workshop also coming up for our one-on-one members. And then our next family forum is how to make the most of college visits. And that's on Tuesday. That's October 7th at 6. So if I have any of my ninth grade families here, we also have a beautiful lab called Your High School Path to College Success. That's specifically for eighth, ninth, and first semester 10th grade students. And that is October 11th with my awesome colleague, Julie. So do check out the member events page for more information about that. As well, if you are a one-on-one scholar with us, make sure your next appointment is booked with your consultant and that you are abiding by the 24-hour cancellation policy. Okay, let me introduce our awesome special guest. The PSAT is what we're here to talk about today. And this is coming up in the month of October for 11th and 10th grade students. And I've had so many questions about that. So I thought this would be the absolute perfect time to welcome Kim Parker Lewis from
Hi.
More Than a Teacher, our awesome partner. She is very accomplished. She has a master's in ed from Baylor. She's taught test prep in one form or another for going on 25 years. And she's been with More Than a Teacher for 13 as a test prep instructor, a program coordinator, and a college advisor. So we are so pleased to have her here as one of our partners and also just a wealth of information about this really, really important topic. So
Yeah,
thanks again for being here. And
of
I'm
course.
going to take a back seat. I'm going to take some notes and let you inform our audience about the PSAT and why it's important anyway. So
All right,
without
awesome.
further ado, here's Kim.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much. We are so glad to partner with Access College America. We are happy to offer any helpful tips and information that we can to make sure that we sort of demystify some of the aspects of the test prep process, but specifically the PSAT and what's it really for. So I'm going to go through a presentation that we offer to all of our students that is sometimes taught. Well, that's not the right thing. Hold on just a second. That is sometimes taught in a more slow, like luxurious setting where we're really digging deep on the national merit issues, knowing that we have many different families of students who are not all juniors in the audience right now. I'm going to go clip through some aspects of this at a faster pace. The presentation can absolutely be made available to y'all if you're interested, because I want to also, especially for sophomores and juniors, I want to show you some resources, some practical things about how you can be working on test prep, whether it's with us or on your own, and what opportunities are out there for you to practice this test on your own. Okay. All right, so PSAT and National Merit. A lot of people associate PSAT specifically with the National Merit Scholarship, and I want to make sure that we understand that that's actually not the primary focus of taking the PSAT, but also to then, again, clarify, well, what is that? What is National Merit? Okay. All right, so first of all, what is national merit? So if you think about the primary focus of the PSAT, the primary focus of the PSAT, to be fair, is to sell SAT. So the PSAT has been offered for almost as long as the SAT has been offered. I mean, it's about the half the time, but SAT is going on 100 years old, and so PSAT has been around for, like 40 to 50 years. So students have been given the PSAT as a pre-SAT. We always like to clarify that it is not a practice SAT. It is considered a pre-SAT. However, the PSAT that you're given as a junior, pretty much across the board, most schools in the nation offer this to juniors. It's absolutely free at no charge. And it is also attached to scholarship opportunities. And one of those, the very largest private scholarship company in existence in our country, is called National Merit. So that's where those letters come from. That's why when you're a junior, they call it the PSAT NMSQT because it's the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And again, that's not its origin. Its origin is just to give you experience with the SAT, which they hope that you choose to take, right? Not all colleges require it. We know, not just because we're a test prep company, America knows because they're here to give you all the best advice. But we know that it could be a very important part of your college admissions process, but it's not the only piece. And so the pre-SAT is meant for SAT company, the College Board, to, hopefully lure you into taking the SAT multiple times. Yes? The National Merit Scholarship part is a qualifying test, meaning you can't gain entrance into this National Merit Scholarship Club unless you score a very high score on your PSAT, but only the PSAT when you are a junior. So if your high school offers a PSAT to you in 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade, that is pure get used to the SAT, see what it's like, okay? But when you take it as a junior, not only could you qualify for national merit, but look, you also could, high scores, qualify for other scholarship opportunities. The College Board, especially in the recent years with the change to the digital test, the College Board has really ramped up the number of other scholarship programs that they partner with, where they might release your PSAT scores as a potential for you to qualify for other scholarship opportunities. When juniors get their PSAT scores back in December, they often come with a report saying, here are some scholarships that you could be eligible for. So we think of PSAT, we should also think of scholarship opportunities, okay? All right, so now a little bit more about the PSAT and how the score works, because understanding the score is how you can understand, is my score high enough to qualify me for national merit or other scholarships, okay? So again, remember it's a pre-SAT. It's not a real SAT. Your PSAT score can never be used for college admissions. There may be, depending on what state you live in, and depending on your school district, there may be other qualifications that the PSAT is used for that is school specific, district specific, or even state specific. But it is inherently just practice for the SAT. So when you get a PSAT score back, now when you take the PSAT as a 10th grader, you are technically taking the exact same test as all of the 11th graders are taking. You're taking the NMSQT. So 10th graders, listen up. When you get your PSAT scores back this year, that gives you a very strong indicator of, are you national merit potential? Do you have the potential to gain a very high score when you take the PSAT as a junior, when that score could actually do something for you, okay? As a freshman and a sophomore, it cannot do anything for you. But one of the things that can be the most difficult to comprehend is the score. So let's talk about the score. Now, the total score for your PSAT is a 1520, not the traditional 1600. And a lot of people think, oh, well, that must be because the PSAT is easier. It is not easier. It is, in fact, at the same difficulty level as every SAT with the new digital format. In fact, test questions are created and generated by teams of, educators and scientists, actually, who are creating these test questions. And then programs randomly assort the questions onto either a PSAT or an SAT or a PSAT practice test or an SAT practice test, and then any remaining questions get dumped into something called the SAT question bank, which I will show you. So the very same questions that show up on a PSAT could have just as easily been randomly assorted onto a real SAT. The PSAT is not easier, but the score is lower because it does not have any experimental unscored questions, and it is a little bit shorter. So that lower test score is because the questions are worth the same amount of points, but there are simply fewer questions. Not very many fewer, but fewer questions to merit that lower score, okay? So here are the sections. You have one reading and writing section, one math. They're worth 760 points each, split half and half. But the National Merit Selection Index score is a different number. It's generated from your PSAT score, but it is a different number. And that number is actually what is used to determine your eligibility for national merit. So they use your test scores. Now, in previous years, any adults in the room certainly know that the SAT has changed over the years. In previous years, the digital format has switched to a combined reading and writing section. But before that, there was a separate reading section and a separate writing section. And before that, there wasn't. And before that, there was. And so this has gone back and forth a couple of times. And so, because of that, the National Merit Selection Index score is based on a three-part score. You get one score for the reading and writing, but then they want to have like a separate reading score and a separate writing score. And so they just take your reading and writing score and double it and then add your math. So each of those scores would be 76. Just think of it this way. They just drop the zero, okay? So the total score would be a 228. And in Texas, what we're typically looking for is scores in the 200s to potentially qualify for potential scholarship offers. And for national merit, maybe 220. Okay, so let's look at those numbers a little bit more closely. Again, even though the reading and writing section is one test on the new digital format, they separate out that score into a reading score and a writing score. Now, they don't separate out which parts of the score are just reading questions. They just literally double the score. You get a 600 on the reading and writing, you get 60 points for reading, and then also 60 points for writing. So 76 times 3 is 228. So that's the highest possible selection index score. And the National Merit Scholarship Competition is awarded, or people can be part of it. You can be invited, I should say, when you score in the top 1% of all the other students in your state. So this is based on state by state. Some states have much higher average scores than other states, so it can be even more difficult to attain. Now, these numbers are for Texas, and I know that not everyone is in Texas, so I do want to kind of throw out the number like 220 or so. That is generally a good idea. So if you took a practice test, you cannot look at your score. Let's say you took a practice test, or let's say you have your PSAT from last year and your PSAT is a 1300. That 1300 doesn't translate directly to a national merit selection index score. You have to look at how you scored on the reading and writing, drop the zero, double it. How do you score on the math? Drop the zero. Add those three together. And if you're close to 220, then you're in the potential, you're in the realm of hoping for national merit, which means you should work at it, okay? All right, so the idea would be once you have scored this very high score on the PSAT and potentially have, the national merit company talking to you, that's when they would call you a semifinalist. So when you score in the top 1%, again, of all of the scores that are compiled according to your state, when you score in the top 1%, then you'll be invited to be a national merit semifinalist. And this is not something that you get to find out about actually until a whole year after you've taken the PSAT. This is released in September of a senior year. So junior year, October, you take the PSAT, and some students will score high enough to feel very confident. I mean, if you were to receive a 1520, a perfect score, there is very little doubt that you are not going to qualify for national merit. But other students, it's hard to know. We don't know. It depends on how everyone else did. And so your high school counseling team can announce this and let you know that you qualified to be a national merit semifinalist in September of your senior year. And what's so important about that is this is also an accolade that can be put on your Common App. It can be listed as an award. It should go on your resume, but you might not know about it until September. So I have absolutely worked with seniors before who have applied to colleges not knowing they were national merit semifinalists, and then found out that they were and wanted to update, applications they've already sent, or wanting to update their application for future colleges. So the timeline can get a little bit tricky, which is why I want you to know how the score is compiled in case you could have, foreknowledge about whether or not you might qualify. So a student is called a finalist, a national merit finalist, only after you choose to enter into the program. Okay, so once you've been awarded semifinalist status, then you have to actually now apply. You have to compete with other students to actually get the big scholarships. So when we tell students that national merit, yeah, it can be a big scholarship, it also means that the PSAT doesn't earn you scholarships. The PSAT is an invitation to score very well on a test. If you score high enough on that test, then you get another invitation. Now you've been invited to participate in the National Merit Scholarship Program. Once you say yes to that invitation, now you are competing with all of the other students who also scored in the top 1% of their state. And so that's it's an elite group of students, and you're competing with those students for scholarships. And that is now no longer based on your score. So someone with a 1520 is not more eligible for a scholarship than someone without a 1520. You are now competing for other students to get a scholarship, maybe based on the essays that you write, sitting for an interview. There are multiple things that you have to submit. But the good news is there are some colleges, and this is going to show up on another slide. So let me just kind of zoom there in a second. There are some colleges that offer automatic scholarships for any student who is just a National Merit semifinalist. You actually don't have to compete with other students. You could be awarded sometimes half tuition, full tuition. Sometimes it's very simple, $2,000 a year, but it's guaranteed for every year that you're going to college, okay? So when we think about PSAT, we really should think it's a pre-SAT for sure, but also it can be connected to scholarships, some very large, others not so much. So very briefly, I want to talk about like what does PSAT mean for students when I'm not a junior, okay? So 8th through 10th graders. So this is purely preliminary testing information. You are just trying it out, seeing how it goes. Some schools and some districts will use that information to help better understand how you are scoring compared to your peers. And, sort of we think about percentiles. How are you scoring percentile wise? Are you doing better than 50% of your peers? Awesome. That means you are an average student. Are you doing above average? The PSAT 8-9 is truly an easier scaled back test. So if you took the PSAT as an 8th grader or 9th grader, or if you might be taking the PSAT as an 8th or 9th grader this year, this is an easier test. It is scaled back to 8th and 9th grade knowledge, okay? And again, this could be a strong indicator for national merit potential. If a student is already scoring in the 80th percentile on these tests, then that means you have the, all likelihood to score in the 80th percentile later on the PSAT when it quote unquote counts. All right, the PSAT 10, this is what we always consider an indicator test. So this is the exact same test that the juniors are taking. So when you take the PSAT as a 10th grader, you are literally answering the same questions. It is the same difficulty level. It does not qualify you for anything yet. So we call it an indicator test because if you see that your selection index, and I should tell you, the selection index is not something you have to calculate yourself when you get your PSAT scores back. It will be presented as a part of the score. When you do a practice test, it's something that you might need to calculate yourself. And I'll show you how to do that. So when you take the PSAT and get those scores back, any student who's scoring 200 or better on their selection index has a strong potential for national merit. And that means you should put work and energy into PSAT, not only preparing for the SAT, but also preparing for PSAT. Other students might feel like, I'm not going to put energy into prepping for the PSAT. I'll just prepare for SAT or ACT. It doesn't look like maybe I have the potential for national merit. So instead, I'm going to put my money where it should go. I'm going to prep for SAT because SAT and ACT scores can absolutely be directly linked to merit scholarships available at most college institutions. All right, so juniors, a little bit about like what would it take to become a National Merit Scholar? What does it take to do better on the PSAT? And just so you know, this is all the same as far as what does it take to improve your SAT score. So juniors, if you're going to take the PSAT and you think I should put some practice, I should put some energy into this, this is what it would take to get a very good PSAT score. This is also exactly what it would take to get a great SAT score. We actually always, recommend that you maybe start the summer before your junior year. Some of you may have already done that. If not, you still absolutely have time to prepare for the upcoming October PSAT. It usually takes about 20 hours of practice to improve a minimum of 100 points. We always recommend that you plan to take all of the official College Board released practice tests, which I'm going to show you how to access those in the Blue Book app. And it usually is a good idea if you're already practicing and you're already preparing early in the fall of your junior year. It is a good idea for you to plan to take one of the official SATs that are offered in the fall as well. August has just happened. September will be happening in 2 weeks. Probably you might already be planning for that. Wonderful if you are. But it would be too late to decide to do that now. But there still is time for you to register and plan to take the October SAT. The way our More Than a Teacher prep programs work is we would be preparing students for 4 to 6 weeks, 20 to 30 hours worth of practice leading up to the October SAT, and the prep class is 2 for 1. It is PSAT as well as SAT. So any practice that you're doing to prepare for PSAT will likewise prepare you for SAT because they are the same test. Just, they are used for different things. So you've done some practice, you take the PSAT in October. If you have already done practice, here's my encouragement for you. You need to make sure that you continue to do ongoing practice, whether that is a practice section a week, whether that is using Khan Academy, sitting back in to review if you have video lessons or if you have tutoring. Now, once you take the PSAT, you will not get your results back until December. But there are multiple SATs offered in the fall. And again, the idea in test prep is start earlier. So that way you give yourself a longer runway to achieve your best, most optimum score. Okay. Now, quick note about SAT versus ACT. Again, depending on where you live, one test might feel more popular than another. In Texas, traditionally, the SAT has been more popular than the ACT. Since the introduction of the digital SAT, that disparagement has increased a lot in the state of Texas. So depending on where you are, you might feel much more comfortable with the ACT. People might always talk about it. The rule in test prep is you kind of never know which test is a better fit for your academic skills and for your sort of test preferences until you try it. So we always recommend to students to try both the digital SAT, which again, I will show you how you can take that on your own if you haven't already. And there are practice tests available for the ACT digitally online, as well as printable practice tests. The ACT and the SAT are different. That's a whole other webinar, but they are different. And we do find that there's really no rule. Anything you've heard is a total myth. There really is no rule around who would be better at the SAT versus the ACT. Always think about trying both. Whichever one you score higher on, chances are you have the potential to get an even higher score. So juniors, that's when we recommend you try the ACT. After your PSAT scores get released in December, plan for how you will test in the spring. If you haven't already taken an official SAT, maybe plan for that. But try an ACT. Don't take an official one. Try a practice test, risk-free. See how you do. Compare and choose in the spring to focus on just whichever test has a stronger fit for you. Which one are you scoring higher on? Which one is going to help better show off your strengths on your college admissions application? All right, so just real quick, seniors, if you happen to qualify for national merit, then that's when that would be announced. And so again, there's a whole process to actually earning some of those scholarships. You will find that there are specific scholarships offered at specific colleges. You actually have to tell national merit what are the schools that you're planning to apply to. And so it's good to do that research now. You want to find out more about how the colleges that you're interested in, how do they treat national merit? You also want to find out, are there some colleges that you should maybe consider because they offer excellent national merit scholarships, but you just didn't know, and you didn't know you had the potential to be national merit maybe until now, because now you better understand how that works, okay? Okay, so I want to show you a couple of things about how to be practical about this approach, how to practice and prepare for the PSAT, as well as potentially the SAT. And then, of course, we want to take questions. Okay, so if you are students potentially are already familiar with this, parents you may not be, but taking the SAT and the PSAT happens with an app that can be downloaded to a personal device. So a student does not need to be on a school computer in order to practice for the test. The app is both the practicing apparatus and also the testing apparatus. And again, adults might be familiar with the idea of a blue book testing booklet that you might, from college. You walk into the class, you're ready to take a test. Everyone has a blue book on their desk. That is how you submit your work. That's where the name Blue Book comes from. This is purely a testing app. Students cannot access their scores on the testing app. They cannot even see which questions they got right or wrong on the testing app. They can practice taking tests. Now, parents, you can certainly see what this looks like yourself. I'm literally going to sign in here where it says sign in with a College Board student account. Any adult can have a College Board student account. All of your students, if they've already taken a PSAT before, do have one. They, very important here, they need to have access to their own information. Very often we are working with students in classes and they're like, oh, my parents have my login. So let's make sure that that is broadly shared between parent and student to make sure that they can control their own testing process, at least somewhat. So if you're taking a real test, that happens here where it says your tests, but practicing happens here. And look, this is a practice PSAT. In order to take a practice test, all you have to do is go to full length practice. If you want to try a PSAT, you select PSAT. There are only 2 different PSAT tests. Now, chances are you're not preparing for PSAT 8-9. It seemed like most everyone was either a sophomore or junior. So you would want to select PSAT NMSQT. And there are 2 different practice tests to take. If, however, though, you are younger and wanting to prepare for the PSAT 8-9, then there are 2 there as well, okay? But check this out. If we switch to SAT, there are 7 practice tests available for SAT, and you can retake these tests as many times as you need to, okay? So logging into the Blue Book app is how you can take a practice test, but not how you view the results. This is how we view results. So that College Board login that you would use to log in to the Blue Book app, that's also how you log into your College Board account. And I always encourage students to always Google and save this as a bookmark to always log into My SAT. They might be very familiar with this because they probably use My AP or My AP Classroom for any of their AP classes. So let's carry that over to SAT as well. We want to log into the My SAT portion of College Board because that's where their results are. That's where every test they've ever taken is. That's like their page on College Board. So just bear with me as I log in and I'll show you what we can see. So once a student or parents with a student together, everyone's sitting down to log in to their My SAT page. When you take the PSAT, this is how you'll access your results. If you take a practice test, this is also how you can access those results. And definitely once you have official scores, official SAT scores, this is how you access those results. So this is also how you register to take a test. So remember, juniors, we strongly suggest that you take your first SAT sometime in the fall. Do not put it off. If you had an upcoming test, it would be here. If I do not, but if I did, if I had any digital scores, any recent official scores, they would be here. Here's where practice test scores come in. I'm just going to show you what a score report looks like. And then again, we'll take questions. So what you're going to see when you view my scores are many 400s. That's actually the lowest score possible, just so you know. In our classes, we teach students how to access Blue Book, and I walk them through a test. So I take test 4 over and over again, answering 0 questions. So let's look at a test that makes a little bit more sense so that you can actually see some results. So anytime you take a practice test, you can view the score details to see exactly which questions you got right, wrong, and also how you scored in the domain areas. So the reason I wanted to show you this is because this is exactly what your PSAT score report will look like. You will see all of the content areas for reading and writing and for math. And they don't actually tell you which questions you got right or wrong. You actually don't know how many questions you got right or wrong, but you do know proportionally which content areas you got more or less questions right. And they also give you a score range. They'll also release your percentile. So you can see based on your score, are you in the 50th percentile, the 80th percentile, the 99th percentile? And there will be a tab for the selection index, which is how you know if you are qualifying for national merit. Okay. All right. So That is obviously a lot of information, and I am happy to go back over anything that you might want to have a little more information on. I could share additional resources, but potentially as needed. One of the most valuable resources, though, is taking practice tests. And then using Khan Academy. I mean, Khan Academy is a free resource, but it is an official partner with the College Board. So as far as free online practice, that really is the best. We are a partner, my company, More Than a Teacher, with Access College America. So we would love to have any of you in our classes. We host classes locally in our area in Texas, but also online so that anyone could attend them. So yeah, just let me know anything that sparked your curiosity that you have some additional questions about. Um, and we're always, especially in the Zoom chat, happy to take questions that maybe you wouldn't want to necessarily broadcast to the whole group because it might be a little bit more personal to your student. So let us know.
Yes, absolutely. That was a really informative presentation. I could not take notes fast enough, but very, very good. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. Please ask, I mean, really, in any way, because there's a lot to unpack here. But I feel like that was very clear and very informative. So
Okay.
thank you so, so very much.
You're welcome.
Well, we can hang out for a moment or two and see if there are any additional questions or is somebody wants to ask something. I don't know when you're fielding questions from families, what is usually
Yeah.
the first one that you get?
Oh, everyone's question is, what is a good score? Or
Oh,
is my score good? Or is this a good score? And so we always answer that question the same way. Oh, it depends. So one of our marketing people, she likes to ask a follow-up question and she goes, okay, sure. So what's a lot of money? Because knowing what a good score is the same.
that's a great follow-up question. Yes, it
Yeah.
depends. It depends what you're buying.
So I tell students every introductory class, I tell students your SAT score is currency. So it is a number that is entirely meaningless outside of the context of college admissions. And it is purely there to either compare you to other students or to get you something, right? So does it get you into college? Almost never. Almost never. Your SAT score is not the thing that will get you into college, but it will literally earn you scholarship money. And so, one of the best resources for students and parents to better understand is my score good enough? Let's say it that way. Is actually also on the College Board. So I'll just share with you real quick because it's again it's right here. It's
Yeah,
easy to share.
absolutely.
So when you're logged into your College Board account, there is an aspect of College Board called Big Future. And students know this word because that's also what the College Board app that they can download to a phone or a tablet is called. And the Big Future app has a college search feature and a scholarship search. And it's actually scholarship matching, similar to scholarships.com and FastWeb and Scholly and GoMary and all of the other scholarship search engines that are available. So because colleges report their SAT data directly back to the College Board, the most accurate way to see the average SAT scores for a given college is here. So these colleges may or may not present or post this information themselves. Certainly, Google's AI summary can also tell you this information. But here in the state of Texas, one of the schools that most everyone considers to be a part of their admissions package, I should say, is UT Austin.
Absolutely.
So if I search for UT Austin, I can see on the first page here that their SAT range is from 1230 to 1480. Now that is a very broad range. But what that means is that students who applied and were accepted last year, it's always just the previous year's data, the middle 50% of those students scored between a 1230 and a 1480. So not the bottom 25% lowest scoring students, but also not the top 25% highest scoring students either. So this can give you a very real idea of, oh, if my score is in that range, maybe in the higher end of that range, then it's almost like I have a 50% chance of getting in as well. And obviously, that's not how the statistics work, but that does give you something to aim for. Okay. So, yeah, what's a good score? It depends on what you want that score to do for you. Now, this will not show us scholarship money. It will, it will give you basic financial aid information, but the only way to know if a college offers direct scholarships for SAT or ACT scores would be to go to that college's admissions website yourself.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the biggest student misconception about the PSAT?
So I think about the PSAT, students very often think it's easier. So they think that the PSAT is an
Right.
easier
Yeah.
version of the SAT. And so especially for sophomores and juniors, we try to encourage them. It's not, and you should take it seriously. I also think that there is a misconception that, again, that it doesn't matter, right? So I just show up that day and take a test, right? And again, we like to encourage sophomores and juniors to prepare for the PSAT. It's helping you not only to better prepare for when you're ready to take an official SAT, but it helps to create a foundation of like solid test taking skills that can apply in multiple other settings. So, preparing for the PSAT, we think is something that's important. We are obviously a test prep company, but we do think it's important because it is not ever helpful, I don't think, to take the test sort of cold and to not be aware of what to expect. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. If there is an amount of prep that you think is appropriate, in terms of like time,
yeah.
can you share that with us?
Yeah, for sure. So we always
Okay.
say a minimum of 20 hours is
Okay.
pretty appropriate. So 20 hours. So our courses are built around about 24 hours. So there's 16 hours of in-class instruction, and then 8 hours of outside, 8 hours minimum of outside of class practice, independent practice, homework, obviously. And with all of that said and done, we have a money back guarantee of an improvement of 100 points. So 20 hours is not just our guarantee. 20 hours is statistically like what multiple studies have shown as kind of the magic number to really see some improvement in your score. So
Amazing.
yeah,
And that applies to the PSAT and SAT or
yes,
ACT.
absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Wonderful. That's really good to know. And I mean,
Yeah.
you have enlightened me in my consulting practice
Oh,
to,
good.
yeah, to encourage students for this. I wrote a very general blog last week about
Uh-huh.
this topic, and I'm going to definitely link this up to that.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
based on anything else you wanted to share with our audience before we depart for the night?
So I think, the most essential thing to better understand is that, again, standardized testing does not have to be the most essential part of your college admissions package. It really never should be. And it's not for colleges either. So colleges are going to consider the standardized tests that you submit as part of your academic profile, right? So they are looking at test scores that would show off your strengths. They are looking for test scores that further prove to them the excellent grades that you already have, right? Standardized tests have been devalued, certainly since 2020 and lockdown and no testing happening. But more and more schools are starting to require standardized tests. And so, if there has been an attitude of like devaluing the test, our personal philosophy is we need to make this work for you. We value your college admissions process. If the test is something that's holding you back, that is generally due to a lack of knowledge and a lack of preparation, not a lack of skill, definitely never a lack of understanding or intelligence. And so we want to make sure that students and families know everyone can
Hmm.
improve on these tests with sheer work, just effort.
Absolutely. And I
It's
feel like the
memorization.
pendulum. Right. The pendulum is swinging the other way, where I think
Yeah,
colleges are understanding that these tests have a really big value and that more of them are requiring these tests.
right.
And they're a great measure of how students will perform in college.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I feel like this pendulum is swinging the other way, and so it really can never hurt a student to take test prep seriously, to do their very best on the unstandardized tests, whether they're the ACT, SAT, or PSAT, and really put that effort there in measure to
Yes.
other portions of the application for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
great.
unless I hear any more questions, Kim, thank you so much.
You're
This was
so welcome.
amazing. And
Yeah,
I'm so pleased to be able to have this recorded and
good.
it can be referenced as appropriate. But I will be calling on you again because you're a wonderful presenter and
Oh,
a
thank you
wonderful
so much.
partner. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all. Have a good rest of your night.
Yep. You too.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye.